Well, greetings YouTube. We have a special podcast today review in that I got to see a special early screening of Valor, the movie that actually features real-life Navy SEALs, and we'll get into the history on this movie in a second. I'm sure though a few of you are wondering how the hell did I manage to pop into a special early screening? Has the YouTube channel taken off to that degree that I am now considered a legitimate critic? Well, no. Now, as some of you that might recall, if you've seen a couple of my previous videos, I am joining the United States Army. I'm shipping out in a couple days, actually. But one of the things, as I was turning in some last-minute paperwork to my recruiter, they actually got a bunch of early screening tickets for this, which was a screening for critics, but they like to stack the audience with regular people as well, because I guarantee there was probably like 3-4 actual movie critics in the audience, and the rest they stick from various organizations. One, to get feedback from people that are watching the film, and two, they just like to try to spread early word of mouth. So hey, so I was encouraged. They didn't say not to review the film, so I'm not violating any policies here. So I got some nice early tickets. Went to go see it, and as an action film, it's a pretty damn good action film. It will entertain you if you want to see some. Some people will describe it as military porn, and I suppose you can say this is what it is. You know, not the actual porn part, but as in it's this really you're going to see this just to see military stuff. It's a pretty good film. It's actually, I would almost say this is like a Call of Duty the movie when you're referring to the cinematography of the film, because they're able to do, the director, I'm going to give some really good credits, is able to do these first-person shots quite often throughout the film, showing you from the perspective of the SEALs as they're kind of shooting back, firing, and it looks very much like Call of Duty. Normally when somebody tries to do a first-person shot, they aren't able to pull that off because it's very hard to do, because where you want the camera is where the actor's head and upper torso is. So it's a little hard to stick a nice, decent camera there. You know, it's easy to do on a computer model, but to the filmmakers' credit, they were able to really do some good first-person scenes there. Now, I should get into the history of this film. What makes this film a little unique is that it actually started off as a project to make a promotional video for the Navy SEALs, something that they would show recruits or people that are interested in joining the SEALs to kind of get them to want to join. And in that regard, I'm sure some people are going to say this is a propaganda film. And under strict definitions, yeah, you could say, I guess technically this would cover it, but I wouldn't. It's still a good film. It's actually probably more accurate to how things are done. You can almost look at it as a semi-documentary. You can tell that there's authenticity, not only with the SEALs playing, which I will get into their performance in a second, but in a lot of the procedures, even down to some of the stuff, even with my like future soldier training that I'm having, I'm picking up some of the authenticities. For example, when they go down there, they're asking people particular questions and such. When they get to the hostage, you know, they don't. It's not most movies. They just see the hostage. It's her. They pick her up. No, they actually have an interview process which you have to fill out. Everyone in the military rarely has to fill out these forms. I forget the form number, but for your rescue, you have to have questions on there that you'll be asked. So you can, even right now, I'm starting to pick up there's a lot of authenticity in the film. However, that authenticity comes at a bit of a price. One of the downsides of authenticity is that real life is not necessarily cinematic. You can see that when they're doing their kind of briefings before they go on a mission. It is very much how you would see a real briefing. It is somewhat, if the camera filter wasn't, film grade quality, you could really believe that this was just a documentary filming a briefing. However, that means it's not necessarily cinematically exciting. They ask the questions in the same pace and manner as they would ask them in a real life briefing. They give the briefing. They give the briefing style. It's not that overly dramatic style that you would see in a regular Hollywood production. So it does kind of ruin the tempo of the movie a little bit. But you're kind of going to see this film partially to see the authenticity, because the guys that are playing the SEALs are actually SEALs. And according to IMDb's trivia page here, it actually took them 4 months to convince these guys to actually show themselves on screen. They're not credited in the film. The only people that are credited are the actual actors, and well, you can clearly see the difference. That is one downside of bringing in these real SEALs. They look great when they're actually going out and doing the shooting, but when it comes time for the character moments, you can really tell that the SEALs, except for one particular guy I'll get into in a second, the SEALs really are, you can really clearly tell that they're just reading a script. They're not the best actors. And that kind of, from a storytelling perspective, well, at least with relations to the audience, brings it down a little bit because the terrorists are played by actual actors, and they're giving fairly good performances. So when you had the SEALs talking, they're rather very boring conversations, and you kind of want to go back to the terrorists who have much more interesting characters and plots because of their performance. That, and I'm pretty sure that they were also somewhat restricted in how they could write, because every single conversation between the two main SEALs is basically, "You're having a baby. I'm having a baby." And I would say there might be a slight spoiler warning here. Skip ahead 20 seconds, although the spoiler warning I'm about to say is one that you could kind of guess as soon as you introduce this character. As soon as they're talking about, "Oh, I'm having a baby," they go into that, you're just like, dead meat. Not going to make it through the film. So there is some stereotypical dead writing. So, end spoiler warning. That's the only one I was going to give. So, if you're skipped ahead a few seconds, here we go. Spoiler warning over. But yeah, they really stick on just with talking to families and how they are. "Oh, I've got 12 kids. I'm going to have a baby." All that stuff. And every time they're talking, that's it. You really don't get any deeper into the characters, and I'm sure that's because to get these guys cooperation, they didn't want to over-characterize these guys. They didn't want to be having, I guess, probably fear that they'd be associated too much with the characters on film. So it does make them a little bit more bland as a character. But you're not going to see this movie to see for character development. You're going to see this for the action, for the missions, and in that you can actually really see clearly where the original ideal of making a short promotional video was. A lot of that is the stuff you see in the trailer when you have the opening mission, which is them going to rescue a CIA agent that was picked up and held in Costa Rica somewhere. And you can really tell that that was very clearly the original intent, was just to do that mission, have some, because it's the one that shows the most various features, from having them do a more thorough prep, where they go, "Here's the intel analyst, see, you could do this job." Kind of more go over the individual positions of the SEAL. The commander, why he doesn't necessarily go into combat, because he's got to coordinate all these various assets. He's got ravens he's got to watch, which are small drones. There's a sniper element. There's the actual guys that go in. Then you have the boat, the guys on the small crafts, and even a little bit of kind of, I guess, the helicopter crews. So you can really clearly see in this one, this was the movie that they wanted for promotional purposes, because it shows all these various jobs in much more detail. And you can kind of see it spread from there, where they added in characters, and then later on in the film, there's less of a connection to how they do the operations. So when they take down a yacht, they do have one guy. Speaking of the yacht, there is one guy in the SEAL team, and I'm assuming he was... I'm not sure if this guy was an actor or not. He was a Master Chief Petty Officer. I don't know Navy ranks that well yet, so forgive me if I got that wrong. And I'm trying to remember what they said his name was. They kept on calling him Chief, but I cannot find this guy on IMDb. Now, there are several actors on the IMDb list who were in the film who have their names down there, but there's no picture, and then there's no character title. So he could possibly be one of these guys, but he doesn't recognize. He actually is incredibly entertaining. He might be the actual real life interrogator type guy, and he has this really funny banter when he's interviewing this Russian arms dealer. He does a really good job. If I could easily see, I'm almost guessing this guy probably wants. He was probably one of the early guys they got in, because I guarantee this guy's trying to become a work for Hollywood in some capacity. Either that, or he's just got that nice natural ability. Because if you're actual interrogator that you're supposed to take on different performances to kind of get information from various interrogees, I don't know, subjects. That's a better terminology. You have to be able to act to some degree, and this guy actually legitimately has. He's actually rather funny. It's a very funny interrogation banter, which is, of course, actually a legitimate tactic to disarm your opponent who's expecting something to be, having a much harsher. If you're expecting to have a much harsher interrogation, you disarm them by being kind of rather funny. Almost, as they would say in the South, playing it so slow, or as in the North we would call it playing it dumb at first. He kind of, your name, he can't pronounce. He purposely mispronounces the guy's name constantly and such like that. But it's rather enjoyable to see that scene. He is the one SEAL that you kind of wish you did see more of, only because the guy can legitimately act and actually bring some humor to everything. Let's see here. Again, I don't want to get into the plot because it's a month before the movie was released. I know I'm going to have a lot of people watching this review who are, for a change, watching it because they want to know how the general idea of whether the film's good or not. So I'm just trying to stay away as much as possible from the plot. For those of you that don't know, my regular approach to film reviews nowadays is a lot of people watch film reviews to see if people agreed with their own opinions on a film. So you watch the reviews after you see the film. I know this one's a little different, so I'm trying to avoid plot points. The only thing, I think, there are just a handful of things that I think spoiled things a bit. One, and this one was just a pickup. There was one scene where he goes in. There is one terrorist with a suicide vest at one point, and I won't say exactly how the scene turns out. But I will say this: they go in and he looks at this person, gun pointed at him, rifle pointed at him, in a small room, for like several seconds before they go, "Run, suicide vest." For a film that was so accurate up to that point, you're like, wait a minute, they would so drop this person. It's clear that you could, they're wearing the vest over all their clothes, so you don't have to worry about not hitting the vest. And you could see that the person did not have a dead man's switch. Like, they would have to move their finger and then hit the button for it to detonate. So if you have that many seconds, it would have dropped them like that. Even federal agents are trained to kind of take out suicide best or suicide bombers like that nowadays. And especially when you're seeing these guys drop people left and right really fast, and you're kind of going, wait, why didn't they take that person out? It seems like one of those, if they made it a dead man switch, it would have been like, oh, okay, he saw the dead man switch, he realized he couldn't just shoot the person. Yeah, it seems like there was a small little thing they could have fixed with that. But that's really a tiny one. That's my only little pet peeve that I call it, and only because the rest of the film was so extremely accurate. Again, the only problem was the SEALs weren't the best of actors, and they weren't developed too much as a character. It's not like the 80s Navy SEAL film, which of course not very accurate, but they were at least bringing very you got a sense for individual characters in that team. This one, I guess they purposely kept them a little bit more bland. Again, because originally it was supposed to be a promotional video, so you don't want to insert too much characterization on something you want the audience to put, themselves in those characters. So, don't make the guy into classical music, because maybe not everyone watching it is into classical music, and you kind of want people to insert themselves into this film. Which is why I think they use so many first-person shots, and quite impressively. The only downside with the first-person shots does come into the end. And I'm not going to spoil this, but I will say this. The very end of this movie reminded me so much at the end of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. It's extremely similar in the way they kind of shot it, that you really did feel that it was the end of that movie, just with a few slight differences. If he was fighting a General Shepard at the end, it would have really felt the same. Uh, Not saying how that turns out though, but you can really tell that that at least the cinematographer must have been a fan of Call of Duty, because he really took a lot of shots with that first-person perspective. So if you wanted to see a Call of Duty movie, go check this out. The only other thing that might throw off some people is, with using the accuracy, is that they do use very accurate communication methods. So when they're on mission, they're talking how they would talk on mission when they're communicating with each other. The only problem is that might make it very somewhat difficult to track what's going on, because obviously in real life you don't want to have your communications, if they're intercepted, easily understood. So there's a lot of terminology that is purposely designed to rather be anyone listening in won't be able to easily get it. So if you're not familiar with military terminology, you might get lost a little bit in what everyone is trying to do, because that's exactly what the lingo is designed to do. Because most times when they're doing a movie, even if they're using the lingo, they purposely use terms that more apply to everything. So if they'll do like the theme, Santa's Workshop. I forget, some sort of movie did that, where it's like, okay, the drug place is Santa's Workshop, Santa Claus is the drug kingpin, the reindeer will be the truck speed, and they use that specifically. Hollywood likes to use those because it's easier for the audience to keep track of what everyone, and when they're referring to things. In real life, you don't want it to be as obvious as that most of the time. Sometimes I guarantee you it's leaked through and they've had stupid call names. Other than that, it is a little bit stereotypical. After all, like, again, this was not supposed to be a major motion picture at first. It evolved from just a promotional video. So the writing, they do wind up teaming up with a group of Mexican special forces at one point, which is actually, I was somewhat glad, because in real life special forces operate alongside foreign troops and foreign special forces quite often. So I was happy that they actually kind of showed that, but I was very much like, okay, they're bringing in Mexican special forces, so these are the guys that are going to get killed on the mission, so we don't have to lose main characters. That is a trope. I need to name that trope at some point. But whenever you bring in a foreign team that'll join and hook up with yours, they're really just cannon fodder, so they can get shot without having to sacrifice your own main characters. Let's see here. So overall, do I recommend this film? Yeah, if you're an action movie fan, you will probably enjoy this. The character moments will be a little, but you're not going to see this film if you're an action fan to see it for the action. You're going to see it for an authentic feeling Navy SEAL movie. If you're in the military, you might enjoy this. I know when I went, I had a couple of my recruiters there. One was a combat veteran. They both enjoyed it. So I would imagine, based on those two, since I've yet to go to basic, that you'll probably enjoy it. If you're looking for a really in-depth movie, something akin to Saving Private Ryan, and you're looking for that in-depth characterization and commentary on the world, and this, why people, I don't know what type of commentary you'd be looking for in this film, but if you're looking for that type of social commentary on war or conflict or any of that stuff, you're not going to find it here. It's not that type of movie, and I think it's very upfront in not being that type of movie, so you really shouldn't judge it on those criteria. If you're just looking for an action movie to kill some time with, it should be good too. So I do give this a recommendation. I don't do points. I don't give it a 5 out of 10 or 2 sales. I say I recommend it, and I somewhat articulate that recommendation to what types of people will like it, because I know some people won't. Some people will love this film. Is there anything else to cover with this film? I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure I can pick out little pet peeves. Like, there is one shot in there where the guy is on the satellite phone trying to talking to his wife, and it's like he picked the worst spot to have a conversation on a carrier. Like they only have him on a conversation in this one spot so that a Harrier can launch behind him. No other purpose. I think in real life he would, oh, I'm not gonna get that spot. I'm gonna be right next to the fucking catapult. I'm gonna go towards the back end of the carrier where nothing's going on right now. It's not even waiting to like get on a helicopter or anything. It's like you purely were in that spot just so they can have a really cool shot of you talking to your wife as a Harrier launches behind you. That even didn't annoy me. I actually rather found that humorous. And it was talking about the cinematography, it was a rather cool shot. There really are no known actors in this either. Sorry if I'm rambling on a bit at the end here. Literally the only person I recognize. Again, all the SEALs are played by legitimate SEALs. But the terrorists, the CIA people, and anyone that's a civilian is played by actual actors. But you won't recognize any of them. I mean, unless they're in the only person I recognize was Nestor Serrano, who plays a CIA agent. Most of you, I guarantee you, don't know who that is. He's one of those character actors, a TV character actor, who you have seen him before. You're going to see this guy and go, I've seen that guy in this movie or this TV show. He's a character actor that is one of those guys you've seen in everything, but you don't know their name. And lo and behold, he pops up here. You'll see him for a bit. I don't think you're going to recognize anyone else. Again, could be wrong. You might have seen some of these people's films before, but a very fresh audience, very fresh group of actors. So overall, I got my recommendation. Check it out. And that's going to be my last review for quite a while. I ship out in like 3-4 days, so wish me luck. If you hate my review, just take solace in the fact that as you're sitting there watching this, I am being yelled at and made to do many, many push-ups. Is that good enough compensation for you? So yes, so that's our nice channel send-off for good till the summer, I guess, or whenever they let me have computer access again. Signing off, hopefully not for the last time. Sayonara.